So I guess I'm being called out as someone who's sabotaging the right in the upcoming election with female voters. What stance have I taken that's so problematic with older women in the conservative movement? Being very vocally anti-birth control. Kellyanne Conway just did an interview with Politico and said that pro-life conservatives who are trying to convince women to ditch the pill are hurting the Republican Party and ruining their chances at winning the presidential election in 2024. Her polling firm, KA Consulting, teamed up with Independent Women's Voice to poll voters, and they claim that in a series of questioning, voters overwhelmingly agree that women's health issues are important, that contraception will prevent unwanted pregnancies and protect the health of women, and contraception should be available to all women. For Kellyanne, this is proof that conservatives need to talk more about what we are for, meaning birth control, and less about what we oppose, meaning abortion. She mistakenly believes that conservatives who speak out against birth control are only doing so because we don't want to pay for it. She said that the polling showed that nearly half of conservative women would consider voting for a candidate from a different political party if Republicans back birth control restrictions. Republicans should be fearful of isolating these women, she says, and pivot from the conversation entirely if they want to win. Within the article, Politico writes, conservative groups aligned with the GOP, including Turning Point USA, have urged women to stop taking birth control pills, claiming they are actually abortifacients. That sentence hyperlinks to a different Politico article, one written in October titled The GOP's Complicated Contraceptive Dance, and says that the GOP is managing an emerging internal struggle, differing opinions on contraception. The first person mentioned is me. It reads, at a Turning Point USA Women's Summit held in June, podcast host Alex Clark encouraged women to stop taking their hormonal birth control because she said it is completely altering your personality and that many birth control pills are actually abortifacients. This isn't the only article slamming me for starting these conversations this past year either, but I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to stop talking about the dangers of birth control. I'm not going to stop talking about how women do not need abortion. What I will say is that Kellyanne Conway is wrong. I admire her for many things, but I vehemently disagree on this because I think that this issue for women is more important and complex than we should abandon this conversation completely for politics' sake. Many young female voters are starting to see the light on hormonal birth control, and I'm not talking exclusively about conservatives. 18 to 29-year-old women are ditching the pill in droves, pro-choice and pro-life. Between 2002 and 2017, there was a 9% decrease in oral contraceptive use. That keeps going up because, as the New York Post recently reported, young women are starting to have a greater awareness of some of the side effects, which has contributed to a slow but steady decline in prescriptions. They wrote, for more and more Gen Z women, there's an intuitive sense that hormonal birth control might be messing with us and our brains. And research, they said, is backing it up, showing correlations between the pill and a decreased sex drive, as well as higher rates of depression and suicide, and even stress reactions similar to PTSD survivors. Women are hungry for the truth and want to take back control of their mental and physical health. The information has been around, but it's just now starting to make massive waves on social media circles, prompting women to make a cascade of changes from birth control to questioning everything we've been told about pregnancy and the right way to give birth. We have women's attention. Now is not the time to pull away. It's time to move in and shout from the rooftops that women deserve better. We are seeing a new generation of women who understand that pregnancy and menstrual cycles are beautiful, crucial, and something that our bodies were designed by God to do, not illnesses that need to be medicated. That is pro-life, and that is the most pro-woman stance. Every day I hear from women who heard the truth about birth control, which led them to question a myriad of other things that they've been told, from abortion being healthcare to processed food in America being safe. The GOP has got to stop playing defense and start playing offense. That is why they never win. Conservatives lose every time the left says you're blank and conservatives say, no, we aren't. Look, we have to stop playing that stupid game. Play offense. Expose how Big Pharma takes advantage of women. That's the most pro-woman stance conservatives can take. When Trump said we needed to build a wall and didn't apologize, that was playing offense on immigration. He got some heat, but a few years later, even Democrats agreed that he was right. That is why he was so effective, apart from the Republican Party. Kellyanne is saying exactly what the left wants conservatives to say, but we have to draw a line in the sand. This is what we stand for. If you don't like it, get over it. We don't need birth control to manage our cycle. Teach women about their bodies and their fertility cycles and how, by understanding that there's only a handful of days a month that you can get pregnant and tracking the signs, you can avoid pregnancy without pumping your body full of chemicals that are making you suicidal, depressed, sexually numb, and a shell of yourself. That is more empowering. Not to mention, it wasn't conservative women who started the birth control conversation. It was the left. The women who took birth control in the 50s weren't given any safety information about what they'd be taking. They were just told it would be a great idea to control when they had children, since they didn't have a lot of money at the moment. The reality is that Margaret Sanger, the eugenicist who founded Planned Parenthood, originally wanted the pill as a way to prevent Black and brown children from ever being born. By 1970, about 20 years after the pill was invented, women were starting to correlate their depression, heart problems, decreased sex drive, weight gain, blood clots, and more to the pill. The Nelson pill Senate hearings, held by all men who had never taken the pill, tried to downplay the health risks and advocate that the pill was safe and should stay on the market. However, several young women in the audience who were feminist liberals challenged the senators, telling them that women's bodies were being wrecked and no one was listening to them.
We are not going to sit quietly any longer. You are murdering us for your profit and convenience.
I'm not going to permit the proceedings to be interrupted in this way. If you ladies would
Our lives have been interrupted by taking this pill.
It must be admitted that women make superb guinea pigs. They don't cost anything. They feed themselves. They clean their own cages, pay for their own pills, and remunerate the clinical observer. We will no longer tolerate intimidation by white-coated gods antiseptically directing our lives.
Being anti-birth control is bipartisan. Women around the world are realizing that the birth control pill doesn't heal any reproductive problems. It just suppresses the symptoms. For years, you may think that your endometriosis or PCOS, for example, has gotten better, when in reality, your hormonal birth control is just masking these issues so you don't have to deal with them. That Politico article said meaningful action on contraception could help Republicans with their own base and with Democrats dissatisfied with President Joe Biden. This is patently false if women knew the truth. Just consider how many women from all political stances are throwing the pill away. When pro-life organizations like Students for Life have tabled on college campuses this past year, Kristen Hawkins told me that the one issue the pro-choice women on campuses said that they agreed with them on was the harms of birth control. Kellyanne said that Biden is especially bleeding young voters, who you would think would be animated and interested to hear about contraception, and who are in the prime of their years in choosing to conceive or not to conceive, arguing that this is why conservatives should say that we're all gung-ho on birth control. If that is the case, and he is bleeding voters who are at their prime contraceptive years, that is another reason for the GOP to get on TikTok and talk about this stuff in offense. Move the Overton window. Don't play into the status quo. The issue is much bigger than contraception versus abortion. This is actually women's health care. Contraception has never been more accessible. It's so easy to get a prescription, or now birth control over the counter, for virtually any reason, including acne. Precisely why women are angry and pushing back on why we've been given essentially no informed consent at the doctor's office before taking this pill. Being pro-woman means telling them the truth about the side effects and risks. Telling voters the right is pro-birth control is a progressive idea. It's another example of the GOP being two steps behind the left. The left wants to subsidize abortion pills. The right now wants to subsidize birth control. What is really the difference between those? At what point are we going to look around at the destruction birth control has caused and draw a line in the sand? Emma Waters, a research associate in the Heritage Foundation's DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family, tweeted, "Casual sex equals unplanned pregnancies equals more abortion. This is not the pro-life answer." And she's right. Even if we were looking at this strategically from a pro-life perspective only, pushing birth control is extremely counterproductive as the pro-life party. Don't forget about the Guttmacher Institute's finding that about half of U.S. abortion patients reported using contraception in the month that they became pregnant. The pill is not preventing abortions. The Politico article mentions that Senate Republicans blocked the House-passed Right to Contraception Act, which would have enshrined the right to contraception into federal law. If the Right to Contraception Act was about educating women about their bodies and giving them resources to know about fertility and how to avoid unwanted pregnancies, the GOP should support it. But nobody has a right to blindly have synthetic hormones pumping through their bodies only to be diagnosed with cervical cancer years later, not knowing all of it could have been completely avoided. Beating the left is not by being one step behind them. It's not by being a little less progressive than they are, but it's by being unapologetically right. Right politically and right objectively and morally. Mary Margaret Olohan at the Daily Signal wrote an amazing rebuttal to this Politico article titled "Conservative Women Slam Calls for GOP to Push Contraception." She quoted countless women on the right agreeing with my sentiments, like Sarah Wilder, a reporter for the Daily Caller who accused Conway of ignoring the dangers of birth control for political gain. She said, ironic that Republicans seeking to appear more pro-woman would do so by pushing a synthetic hormone that causes gut issues, heart attacks, depression, infertility, and a myriad of other side effects. Stop lying to women for political gain, Kellyanne. If this is the direction that conservatives were to go, at the end of the day, we'd be sending the same message as the left, that having children and having a family is a burden. What is more pro-woman than teaching a woman about her body and fertility and encouraging her to live a lifestyle that honors her body? There is an opportunity here to be actually the most pro-woman political party. That is why we need to start playing offense. When we start fully embracing this, explaining it, educating women on it, more women will flock to us. It's a losing tactic to sacrifice our principles on the altar of winning elections. We'll only see more chaos, depravity, and destruction if we keep going this route. Those of us on the right and the left that are outspokenly anti-birth control aren't saying to ban it. We're saying to educate women on it. And ultimately, we believe if more women knew the truth, they'd make a different choice. Same with abortion. The more women that not only understand what it is, what actually happens in an abortion procedure, and how many people in the pro-life movement in every single city are willing to help mothers in crisis pregnancies, I believe more would choose life. Conservatives should oppose birth control because, yes, it can be an abortifacient in some cases, but also because it destroys women's bodies and because it forever enslaves women to big pharma. The more that we expose the system, the easier it will be to take it down. It is time to say goodbye to girl boss conservatism, Kellyanne. Your time is over. It's a government by the people, after all.